Hola clase, I hope that you guys are all doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking about mandatos, which are commands. So remember, we have 4 different types of commands. We don't only have the formal and informal, but within each of those, we have affirmative and negative. And remember here that formal refers to usted and ustedes, while informal refers to the tú form of commands. And in this section, I have basically summarized the steps that you have to take in order to get to each type of command. So for our formal affirmative, you start with the yo form in the present indicative. You'll remove the o or oy ending, and then you'll add the opposite vowel. For AR, you add e for usted and en for ustedes. For IR and ER, you add a for usted or an for ustedes. And when you're trying to form the negative, you add no before the verb. And we'll see how to also add pronouns in there a little bit later on in the video. So this is for formal. Remember, formal is usted and ustedes, while informal refers to tú. And for the affirmative, you conjugate the verb into the el, ella, usted form of the present indicative, unless it's an irregular, and then we'll go through what the irregulars are. In order to form the negative, you follow a pattern similar to the affirmative formal. You start in the yo form, you remove the o or oy ending. If it's AR, you change it to ES because it's the tú form. If it's IR or ER, you add AS as well for the tú form. And then since it is negative, you have to add no before the verb, just like for the negative formal commands. Okay, and we've been doing this in class. I think you guys have gotten pretty good at forming the commands. And in this part, it really just goes over what are the steps, but in a different form. So it gives you the verb here, and it tells you and it shows you what to do next. So you take the verb from the infinitive form, which ends in AR, ER, or IR. You conjugate it into the yo form, which ends in O or OY. You remove that ending, which gives you this new stem, and you add the opposite vowel. For usted, which is E for AR verbs, A for ER and IR, and then you'll add the N for ustedes. So this gives you a different way of summarizing what we talked about in the last slide. This goes over one of the irregulars, which shows us the spelling change that happens for verbs that end in car, gar, and sar, which we've already went over. You do the spelling change. The C changes to QU plus E, the G to GUE, Z to CE. And notice here that because we conjugate it first into the yo form, that this remains in its stem changer form. Comenzar in the yo form comienzo. In the new stem comienz, there's a spelling change to C, plus you add the opposite ending, which is, because it's an AR, you'll add E. And notice this is very similar to the preterite yo form, but there's no accent mark on the E. Okay, and then the same thing we've been doing for ustedes, you add the N at the end of the verb. We also have these different irregulars, ser, ir, dar, estar, and saber. Notice that dar and estar are the ones that have accent marks. Dar only on the singular form of the usted, and it's to differentiate it from the preposition de. Este and estes, this should be esten. I don't want to mess you guys up. Este and esten also have accent marks. And then the same thing here. We also have stem changers that are irregulars. And I've included here the usted, ustedes, and tú form to show you how they look different when they're compared with each other. So cerrar is an E to IE stem changer. This is the E that changes. Cierre usted, because we add the opposite ending, en for ustedes. But the tú form is the el, ella, usted form in the present tense. So since it's an AR verb, the present tense el, ella, usted form is cierra, and that would be the to command for this to change. Pedir is an E to I, so this E changes to an I as we see here. Dormir is an O to UE. And they all follow the same pattern. So just keep those types of irregulars in mind when you're thinking of formal and informal commands. Okay, so now our favorite part, we're going to talk about adding pronouns. So remember we have 3 different types of pronouns that we could add. Indirect object pronouns, direct object pronouns, and reflexive pronouns. The me, te, and nos are the same in all of them. What changes is the third person singular and the third person plural. So we have the le and les for indirect, lo, la, los, las for direct, and the tu ses for reflexive. So remember to keep in mind which pronoun that you are using. The indirect object pronouns answer the questions to what or to whom. The direct object pronouns answer the question what or whom, and reflexive pronouns refer to things that you do to yourself. And these are just a few things to keep in mind when we are adding pronouns. So when we have affirmative commands, which are the tú, usted, and ustedes, all types of affirmative commands, you attach the pronoun to the end of the verb. If it's a negative command, you have to place the pronoun between no and the verb. So remember, in a negative form, the no always comes first, then in the middle, next would be any pronouns, and last would be the verb, okay? So these are just some things we also need to remember. You have to add an accent mark on the vowel that is third from the end when you are attaching it to the affirmative command. Indirect object pronouns always come before direct object pronouns. Le or les changes to se before lo, la, los, and las. And I just want to highlight there this one is only in the affirmative. Because since you're not attaching it in the negative command structure, you don't have to put any accent marks. So here it gives us a comparison of the two for affirmative and negative. So here for the affirmative, these are formal commands. We have hable, which is our verb, hable, talk. And because we want to specify who we want them to talk to, we are going to add here the indirect object pronoun, le, which can refer to him or her. So since we attached here a pronoun, we have to start from the end counting the vowels. So we count 1, 2, and 3. This is how we know where to put the accent mark. Okay, the same thing here, except for the verb here is in the ustedes form. So this is saying you guys or you all buy or purchase, but we don't know what it is that we want you to buy. So that's why we add here the direct object pronoun, and in this case, la refers to la comida. Okay, so we have our verb compren. We attach our direct object pronoun. You start from the end, 1, 2, 3. That's how you know which one to, which vowel to put the accent on. Then we have here 2 different object pronouns. The first one is me, which is an indirect object pronoun. The last one is lo, which is a direct object pronoun. Remember that the indirect object pronoun always has to come before the direct object pronoun. And if this was give it to him or her, which would be le in this case, because le and les always change before lo, la, los, and las, this would have changed to se. Okay? And we've been doing this in class as well. I think you guys have gotten the hang of it pretty well. And then we also have here the negative form. So in the negative form, it's just like we saw at the last slide. You first have no, then you have your object pronouns, and then you have the verb. And remember, if there's more than one object pronoun, the indirect object pronoun will come first, then the direct object pronoun. Okay, and it's the same thing here for affirmative informal commands. Okay, you attach it in the same way as we have seen. Okay, now we have our irregular forms. Decir, hacer, ir, poner. Okay, and if we look here, it gives us actually a note about ir that the affirmative tu command of ir is identical to the tu command of ver, which we have seen in the class. The other informal command forms that we have are salir, ser, tener, and venir. Okay, and then for negative informal commands, it's basically just the same thing that we have seen before, right? Hablar is our infinitive verb. We conjugate it into the yo present indicative. We're left with a new stem. And then we have to add the opposite vowel and s together. Hablar becomes hables. No hables. Beber becomes bebas. Okay? And then basically we do the same thing that we've seen before, where you add the no beforehand. Okay? This is the same thing that we just saw with adding pronouns to the formal commands. You do the same thing. You have your new command form, which here would be the, and we want to say who do you want to tell the truth to? Oh, we want to tell him, so you have to add the indirect object pronoun, which is le. Okay, and then in the negative form, you have your steps to get to the verb. You add no at the very beginning, and if there's any type of pronoun, you'll put it in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to send you guys this PowerPoint as well as this video. There are some Learn Smart activities on both formal and informal commands on Connect. If you complete those by Wednesday, December 4th, I will give you guys extra credit. So I hope this video has helped you. We'll be going through this a little bit more in class, but I wanted to break it down a little bit more for you guys. And I'll send you the PowerPoint as well. I hope you guys have had a great week.